It's been a few years since I suffocated my mom. I'm not sure how many exactly, and I'm not sure that it matters. It could be 3 years or it could be 20. Do you care? My mom was dying of cancer. She was suffering, and I helped end it. That's what I tell myself. I always looked at death as if it was always just around the corner, never coming for me, but always on the hunt for everyone that mattered to me. I was fascinated with the idea that my actions could control when it would come. I could slow it down, push it aside, and forget about it until it crept back around the corner, looking for my mom, my sister, my dad, or my dog. I would force myself to complete a simple task over and over, perfect every time, and if I were able to do that, death would retreat. The great secret would remain hidden. I have so many questions now. I think my dad helped me, but I'm not sure. My sister and grandma watched from the foot of the bed, and I think a nurse may have watched through the window of the door. For the time being, I'll use the noun I. I did, I used, for the sake of clarity in my own mind. If things change, or I remember something forgotten, or I can no longer handle the burden alone, you'll be the first to know. I may even decide that the whole thing was a dream. Am I writing this for you? I used a towel. There were towels all over the small 8x6 hospital room. We used them, I say we with certainty, because I know for a fact that I was not the only one using them to complete these tasks. Cleaning vomit from her chin, wiping saliva from her lips, tears from her eyes and cheeks, soaking them in cold water and placing them on her body in an attempt to cool her outrageously high fever. Towels were everywhere, and I suppose that's why I used one to suffocate her. We all know the movie image of a pillow being pushed down over the face of a hospital patient, but it wasn't like that at all. It wasn't nearly as efficient or silent or distant. My father and I stood in the endless hallway, hospital rooms blinking off into infinity. Maybe we'd had too many nights of 2 to 3 hours of sleep. Maybe we had spent too many evenings sucking blood and mucus from the back of my mom's throat. The blood would build up, oozing from her ulcerated cheeks and throat, and then rest comfortably at the entrance of her airway, a puddle of blood trying its best to steal breath. For a few days we thought the blood was coming from her tongue, but her tongue had dried up and returned to the size it was the day she was born, except now it was rotting and hard. Even the tears of blood running down her face and into the corners of her mouth couldn't soften it. It looked to me like it was struggling to stretch back to its normal size. It was an adult's tongue forced to be the size of an infant's. I wonder if it hurt. I wonder if she felt pain then. I wonder if she wanted me to stop. I wonder if she wanted me to press harder. The life-stealing puddle of blood always seemed worse at night. We later realized that her tongue, so perfectly black and tiny, was also blocking her throat. I would start to doze off in the leather chair in the corner of the room, my head spinning, breathing in the death that draped itself over everything. Here, my waking dreams were real. There was no distinction between the nightmares in my head and the nightmares in my life. Some nights I would drive home after midnight, and I would sleep on the sofa in the room we had spent so much time together in as a family. I would lie on the same sofa that I was on when my mom and dad came home from the doctors and told me that my mom had a lump in her stomach. That very moment, I knew it was over. I would close my eyes for a few hours and then slide off of the sofa, creep out the front door, and feel the cool early morning air on my face. I never knew if I would die if I drove my car into a tree. I never knew if I would die if I jumped out of the window. I never knew if I would die if someone pressed a towel over my face. These battles weren't new. They were now just everywhere. There were no 11 hours of daylight. Then I would hear a gurgle, the desperate attempt to fill lungs with air. When the gurgles first started, I wasn't sure if the action was voluntary. She hadn't spoken in a week, and her eyes were almost always closed. She hadn't eaten anything or had a sip of water in far too long. The IV fluids ran. When I heard the sound, the gurgle, I snapped back to attention in the dark room, leaving one nightmare and stepping into another. For a second, I would look over at my father, asleep on the cot in the corner, with a look of desperation in my eyes. I didn't want to do this alone. I wanted someone to help me. I was scared, terrified that I would do something wrong or that I wouldn't be able to save her. It was always only a second, and then I would grab the suction and place it in the back of her throat. I would watch as the blood and saliva zipped through the long plastic tube that attached to a plastic container on the wall. A dim light from outside the only window in the room would illuminate it as it moved with lightning speed, streaking red and splattering along the bottom of the container. You've heard the noise of the dentist, a straw trying to suck up the last few drops of a drink. Hold your breath and pretend you're suffocating. I'd hear a gasp and know that her throat was clear. Again in the chair, waiting in the dark for anything. A noise, a thought, a god, a sign, a feeling, a spirit, a gurgle. My dad and I both decided that we couldn't do this anymore. We decided that my mom couldn't live anymore. We never said what we were going to do or how we were going to do it. But we walked to the nurse's station and told them that we wanted everything stopped. I think we demanded to talk to the doctor to see what he could do. We wanted everything stopped. Everything. The IV fluids, the meds, her heart, her breathing. I remember the nurse looking at us strangely with a bit of fear in her eyes. Maybe she could see our desperation. Maybe she could see us thinking, either you do this for us or we're doing it ourselves. She picked up the phone and made a call. She said they would stop everything except the morphine. We walked down the hall shoulder to shoulder, silent like we always are. He didn't register to me. I was counting the rooms as we floated by them. I wasn't glancing into them like I sometimes did. That's the room where so-and-so was sick, and that's the room where what's-her-face was. We walked through the door and shut it behind us. We didn't always do this, shut the door. Sometimes it was comforting to have it open, to be part of something bigger. Not now. We needed to be alone. We needed the lights out. We needed to become shadows, and we would stay shadows. The fog crept in from the hallway, sliding under the door and through the cracks around the window. It slithered slowly from under the bed, wrapping itself around our ankles and snaked its way up our legs. It sent a chill through the room, the final moments of life hidden in the dark. My dad stood closest to my mom's head, more to the side than the front. I was to his right and my sister to mine, I think. My grandma stood at the foot of the bed. We all leaned in. Someone started and then we all joined in, pleading with her to let go, to leave us, to go with her father, to go with her daughter. We must have been loud. I'm not sure who grabbed the towel, but it happened quickly. I remember my hands over it and it over her mouth. I pressed hard, tears streaming down my face. I pressed for as long as I could, and then I think I felt another pair of hands over mine and we pressed together. I'm beginning to think that I imagined those other hands. Pulling back, I would hear a gasp and my heart would break. Then I would push harder. I pressed until it was over. I released my hands and my mom made a few reflexive gasps, and that was it. She was dead. I felt relieved, exhausted, and out of my body. It existed on its own, separated from my brain. It floated around the room and I watched it. I unhooked my mom's chain and cross from her neck. She already felt cold. And I lifted her hand and slid off her ring and gave it to my sister. My mom's face was swollen from the steroids. Her skin was pale with blotches of red. Her eyes were open and staring, and I could see her in them. I could see those eyes watching me from the window, watching me from her seat at the dinner table, looking blankly into her cup of tea, wearing the same soft pajamas she had on now, the same pajamas I'd rested my head on too few times. I could see her fear and pain and confusion and loneliness. I was alive and she was dead. We were together like we'd never been before, worlds apart and touching. One of us breathing and thinking and feeling, and one a body without life. I don't think I've ever been more alive. It's amazing how quickly a body becomes death. It's alive 1 second and dead the next. You grow cold and start to smell. Your body expels what it can and you're gone. This is what it's like. I'd wondered so many times. This is what it's like. It's chaos and peace and guilt and relief and nothing and everything. Meaningless, profound. It smells and it's cold. It's lonely and overcrowded, painful, numbing and stabbing, all in a second. Repeated.
I sure hope that's that.
That's that.